Okay, everyone, let's grab our seats. It's officially 8:30 p.m. My name is Ron. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown. A couple quick shout-outs. We want to shout out to Ed, who's been, crushing the coffee here, filling in for poor Howard. He had his hamstring cut by somebody, and he's had a slicing to the left, but they fixed it. So his golf game will improve. He promises us that. Anyway, what else we got to talk about? We got a bunch of stuff. We're going to have some fun. We got one of the best chairpersons in all of AA. Let's welcome Nick up here and have some fun tonight.
Welcome to the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Nick and I am an alcoholic. This is a 1-hour speaker meeting that meets every Saturday evening at St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. Food and fellowship starts at 8 p.m., followed by our speaker at 8:30. The business meeting for this group meets every Saturday at 7 p.m. to 7:30 right here. Please come early and join us. The purpose of this group is to provide a consistent message of hope and recovery through God reliance and service to others through the practice and teaching of the 12 steps. We record all speakers so that others may benefit from the message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, simply ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town that would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Yes, sir.
Hey guys, I'm Patrick from Alcoholic.
Hey Patrick, welcome. All right, welcome everybody. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Would anyone with working knowledge of the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor, please raise your hand. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Our sister group is a big book study meeting that meets every Thursday at 7:30 just up the street at Salem UCC Church in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. We put the coffee on at about 6:15. We have meeting lists and big books on easy terms. Please see me or any home group member after the meeting. If you cannot afford a big book, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group will give you one at no charge. Anyone willing to make donations for the purchase of big books and CDs to help those who can't afford them can put donations in a jar on a table marked Big Book and CD Donations. All CDs are available free of charge. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group of Doylestown, Pennsylvania, and our Facebook group. Subscribe and share. You can find our speakers there. Join our Facebook page to keep informed and share upcoming events and meetings. And now with that, I have Sherry to come up and read the AA preamble.
Hi, I'm Sherry, I'm an alcoholic. Hello. The AA Preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution. Does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help others, alcoholics, to achieve sobriety. I have asked Kara to come up and read the AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Kara, and I'm an alcoholic. Hello, everybody. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. I asked Nick to come back up.
The 7 tradition. Every AA group ought to be fully self-supported and declining outside contributions. At this time, we'd like to pass the baskets. We have no dues or fees. We do have expenses, and this group provides many services. Your donations cover food, rent, big books, CDs, events, and workshops. And just one quick announcement: if you like donuts, please throw $5 in the basket, and if you want better donuts, throw $10 in there. There's absolutely no smoking on church property. Please take a moment to silence all cell phones and try to limit movement during the meeting to avoid distractions. Now to introduce our speaker, a good friend of the Conscious Contact Speaker Group. Tonight we have Jackie P. from the Media Young People's Group.
That would have been humiliating. Hi, I'm Jackie. I'm an alcoholic. Is that too loud? I'm not used to this at all. I'm not used to meetings where you dress up and there's a huge stage and a microphone and a podium. There's a lot of power in this. I feel it having a really negative impact on my ego. This is wonderful. It's nice to be asked to do stuff like this. I enjoy being asked to do stuff like this. I get really nervous when I walk up here and I have to do stuff like this. And for some reason, it always helps me to preface what I'm about to say with I have a healthy amount of nerves. Anytime I'm asked to speak on behalf of AA. The first reason is because with my alcoholism comes a really big ego. And I want to sound good. I want you guys to like me. It's always been that way. I've always really wanted people to like me. And also I love Alcoholics Anonymous with all of my heart. I really do. And I want to convey a message of depth and weight and hope, and I'm not always sure of my ability to do that, especially tonight. For some reason, I'm in a really icky mood. Nothing happened at all. I don't want to do this at all. I was on my couch and I was wearing jeans and I was very comfortable. I just started the show on Netflix and I got really into it. And then it was 7:08 and you turned off the TV and it was time to go. And I just didn't want to do this. But I intuitively know how selfish it would be to use these steps to keep myself sober, to have a healthy lifestyle in this apartment I only got through the power of the 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, to enjoy my night when I'm being asked to speak here. And I know that it's God's will for me to be here. I believe that to be true. When George asked me to come out and speak for you guys, I think that God was putting that in my path for a reason. And then Ron reminded me to be here on Thursday. And then today I told my friend Laura, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go speak at this meeting in Doylestown. And she was like, oh, are you gonna wear a dress? I would wear a dress. I thought she was kidding. I thought she was absolutely kidding. Earlier today I was wearing distressed jeans and a tank top, and I kid you not, that was what I was planning to wear. And I don't think that was by mistake. I think God designed it that way so that I didn't walk up here looking like an idiot in my ripped jeans. I don't know, but I've prefaced this enough. I'm gonna just go ahead and tell you what it was like, how I got here, and what it's like now. I have a sobriety date. It is July 28th of 2017. I have a home group. It's the Media Young People's Group. It's on Tuesdays nights at 8 o'clock. It's out in Delaware County. It's an hour away from here. And I love it there, but a big part of me hates it there. When I first joined, I joined about 3 years ago. I walked in because it was convenient. It's 5 minutes away from where I live. And I needed to get to a meeting, and I was really upset that night. I forget why, but I wanted to go to a meeting. Mostly because I wanted to feel better. My intention was to walk in there and see what I could get from the meeting. And I walked in there and it was just me and these 4 other men. And it was the saddest meeting I had ever been to. We were reading the big book, and it's an hour-long meeting, and we spend the first half of the meeting just going around, taking turns, reading paragraphs of the big book, and everyone's very mechanically reading the big book. Like it's sad. And then after we're done the entire chapter, we open up the floor and everybody just kind of shares why they're upset. And nobody points to the literature. Like, we just read the big book and nobody is doing that. And I think sometimes sharing where you're at is, it can be beneficial to people. Like, I know that it really helped me to know and understand that my sponsor doesn't always have good days in Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I thought that everybody in these rooms had really good days. Like, if you do the steps and you trust and rely upon God, like, you're just going to be happy all the time. And I didn't feel that. Like, I don't feel that today. I'm in an icky mood for no reason. And then, like, part of me was like, oh, I'm broken, or I'm not doing it right, or maybe I'm keeping something to myself. Maybe I should pray more diligently. I don't know. But I don't think that's true at all. I don't know. I got way off topic. So I made that my home group from that point on, because my sponsor has hammered home the idea to me that I need to look at situations with what I can bring. You know, how can I help the situation, not what can I take from the situation, which is how I've operated my whole life. Like, I only looked at things like how they could benefit me and my needs, and what can I get from this. So I started going there, and I made it my home group, and we since changed the format. Now we stop every paragraph or two, and then everybody shares about where they're at in their days and whatever. But sometimes, you know, like, people do point to the literature, and we are trying to understand the book, and I have an understanding of the book, and I know that I can be useful there, and there's no shortage of people to help there. I'm serious. If anybody ever needs anybody to help, come to my home group on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock. There's lots of people. And with that being said, I sponsor other women, and that's the absolute light of my life. It really is. Last week, I just took a woman through the doctor's opinion, and I've done that a billion times, but I could see, like, her brain just explode when I was explaining to her what she was suffering from. She had absolutely no idea. And, like, the feeling that it brings me, it's indescribable. I really can't. I could sit here and talk to you guys about it for an hour. I could read to you guys about it, but you will never understand it until you experience it. Take somebody else through the doctor's opinion. I don't think that there's a time requirement on that, and watch their mind explode, and you'll know what this program's all about. Like, I just left feeling like I was on cloud nine. And then I do have a sponsor. This week, she's been painfully made aware that she is my sponsor. I was calling her like 3 times a day. I made a really scary amends this week, and maybe I'll get to that later. I don't know. But anyway, I grew up in Delaware County in Pennsylvania, which again is like an hour away from here. And I grew up in a really nice house. It was like a really beautiful community. My mom was a doctor. My dad stayed at home with us. I had 3 siblings. I went to private school up until 8th grade. I wanted for nothing. I like anything I wanted, my parents would give me, and I didn't even have to say please or thank you. Like, I was really given whatever I needed. We traveled everywhere. Any extracurricular activity I wanted to do, they nurtured and like gave to me. You know, I don't know, I had piano lessons every Saturday morning. It was like a really beautiful life. I always point that out because piano lessons is something I would love to give to my son, but it's way too expensive. But like that just drives home the point. Like, I was really given everything. But if you had asked me at the time, I would have given you a tour of my house, and I would have brought you to the one thing that was broken in my house, and I'd been like, look at this. Like, this is a nightmare of a lifestyle. I don't know why my brain has always been geared like that. Like, everything could be absolutely perfect, and I would pick out the one thing that's going wrong, and I am like hyper focused on that one thing. It's always been that way, and I understand that maybe some people don't relate to that. My friend George always talks about this. There are some people, they talk about it in the big book. There are some people that are entirely normal, except with the respect that alcohol has on them. That's not me. I am not normal in any respect. Like, definitely not with the respect that, like, the effect that alcohol has on me. Yeah, so I don't know. My life was beautiful. I didn't like it. I was always unhappy. My circumstances, they were arguably not perfect. You know, my mom had the credentials to be sitting here with all of us tonight. She would drink a lot, and when she drank, she got very mean, and I didn't like that. I didn't like her very much. I thought that she was just a jerk. I thought that she didn't care about me or my siblings. I thought she didn't care about our life. I thought if she did care, then she would just stop. Like, why don't you just stop? That's always what I thought. Now, today, I understand that to be an impossible request. You know, my mom probably loved me very, very much, but she was drinking to overcome a craving beyond her mental control. And then my dad, he was 30 years older than my mother, which made him like 1,000 years older than me. So I didn't have anything really in common with him. I sort of stayed away from him, and what I did do, I like clung on to my older sister. She was like my maternal figure. I remember, like, she taught me everything. She changed my name from Jacqueline to Jackie. Today I am Jackie, you know, like she gave me the nickname and it stuck. I remember when she taught me how to tie my shoes, she taught me how to write my name, like she was really there for me a lot. And as we got older, you know, she got very cool. I was very awkward. But she wore like eyeliner, she had a belly button ring, she listened to rap music, she had boyfriends and friends. Like she seemed to have it all together, and those things were very notable to me, and I wanted so badly to be just like her. And the way that my parents' house was set up, like, so my mom was a doctor and she worked often, and when she wasn't at work she was drunk and asleep or something, you know. So it was a big house. My mom was either at work or drunk and asleep. And then my dad, he was older, he was hard of hearing. He had like 2 hearing aids. He would be sitting in the living room and he'd have the TV on and he'd have the volume turned all the way up, and it was like a surround sound system, and he still couldn't hear anything at all. This guy, he couldn't hear anything. So what me and my siblings were able to do is throw full-blown house parties in the basement of that house, and my dad would have absolutely no idea what was happening until law enforcement knocked on the door and they were like, you have a bunch of children wasted in the basement. And that happened often. My poor dad, he was the best. He was such a good guy. So I don't know, one night I was 11 years old. I followed my older sister down to that basement, and she was letting me hang out with her and her friends, and they gave me my first drink. And I took it like, you know, aggressively. I was like, yeah, give me it. Like, I'm so excited to be one of you guys. I drank it, and it was my absolute first spiritual experience. It was a complete psychic change. Up until that point, like I told you, everything could be absolutely perfect, and my mind would just race to the one thing that wasn't going my way, and I would stay right there. I was always comfortable like that. I always felt very insecure. I've heard a speaker describe it this way before, and it deeply resonated with me, so I took it from her. That's what we do in AA. I feel like we take things. Anything good that you hear me say, by the way, it's not my idea. It was taught to me, really. That's why I come here. But this woman, she said, you know, up until I drank, it felt like everybody in the world was like a letter in the alphabet, but I was the number 1. And I could sort of pass for a lowercase L, but I knew that I was the number 1. So I'm walking around with imposter syndrome, and I'm very paranoid. I think that everybody's on to me, or they're talking about me behind my back. Like, that's always how I was. I always just felt like I was on the outside, or everybody was a part of this big inside joke and they weren't telling me. I don't know. But I drank this drink, and it was hypnotic. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It was blue, and it like sort of tasted like juice. I really enjoyed it. And all of that went away, you know, like I don't know. I think that that's the unmanageability that the first step talks about. I used to think that the unmanageability was referring to the amount of DUIs I had, or it was talking about, you know, the fact that I lost my son, or I lost my home, or I was dumped again. I thought that that's what it was talking about, but it doesn't say that my things became unmanageable. It said that my life was unmanageable, which I believe to be my thoughts and my emotions and my character defects. And alcohol took those things away for me. Like, they made me feel better, and I would be able to talk to people with ease, and I wasn't so self-absorbed that I could listen to what people were saying, and I could even care a little bit, you know, like it granted me this freedom to be a regular person. So I continued to drink as often as a kid can. It made me feel really great. And that just consisted of going to my sister's house parties in the basement when she felt like having a kid run around. And I'll fast forward a little bit up until 9th grade. My mother ended up passing away as a direct result of her alcoholism, which I used to be very sensitive about. This is like insane for me to say out loud on a stage and address, but when my mom died, maybe some of you guys can relate to this. It was the worst and the best time of my life. I really missed my mom, but selfishly, it gave me this excuse to just drink the way that I wanted to drink, and nobody would have anything to say about my behavior because I had this bulletproof excuse. My mom passed away. I'm half an orphan. I would use it to my advantage, and it was so selfish and disgusting. But those are just the behaviors that, I don't know if I just developed them. I would say whatever I needed to say so that people would allow me to be who I wanted to be, which was drunk, really. And I don't know, today I see that my mom, like I said, she was just suffering from alcoholism, and she probably did love me. And my sponsor tells me this all the time, because I have friends that pass away from this disease often. I don't believe that God keeps us suffering for very long. He either gets us better or he takes us home. And I think for my mom, she was done suffering and it was time to take her home. So I like to believe that she's not in pain. So at the time, my dad was 80 years old, no joke, and he had 4 teenagers in his house, this poor guy. And 2 of us were full-blown alcoholics at the time. We're all alcoholics now, but 2 of us were actively drinking, and I was uncontrollable. My dad would try to, my dad had spiritual principles ingrained in his soul. I don't know how it happened, but he was just honest and hardworking, and he saw the good in everybody and everything, and he loved with everything in him. When he loved somebody, he loved with his whole heart. He knew the value of a nickel. He was just a really decent man. And he would try to teach that stuff to me, and intellectually I understood them, but spiritually they went against what I believe to be true, is that everybody and everything was stupid and the world is gray. And my dad would, ask me to go to school every morning, and I would say, no, I'm not going to go. And he was tired, he was older, and he wasn't going to argue with me because of who I became when he told me what I didn't want to hear. I'm not proud to say this. I was borderline abusive to that man. So I was truant all throughout high school, and I went to summer school all throughout high school, and I would go to truancy court, and they would see me standing there, and they would see my old man standing there, and they would like to, reprimand me in any way, but they knew that if they gave me any sort of fine, this guy would be paying for it. So they never gave me anything. They would give me a slap on the wrist, and I walked out of there, and then I would not go to school the next day. There was never any consequences. And because my dad loved me, and he saw the good in me, and he just wanted the best for me, he would, send me to doctors. He saw something was off with me. I was upset all of the time. And he would send me to therapists and psychiatrists. I would get 302'd pretty often because things wouldn't go my way, really. And I would say, I want to die. And maybe, part of that was true. I don't know if it was for attention. That's probably true too. But I didn't have the courage to ever, do it or take my own life. And I would go to the psych ward, which I loved. I loved the psych ward. It was like a 7-day vacation from the chaos that was my life, the self-manufactured drama. I would create all of this chaos, and then I would get to go away for 7 days and just cruise. It was so wonderful. I'd make a best friend for a week. I really, really enjoyed it. But I would go to these therapists and these psychiatrists, and I would tell them exactly how I felt. But I wouldn't tell them what I was drinking or how often I was drinking. They had no clue that I was drinking. I wouldn't let them know. So I would tell them how I felt, and that is I'm worried all of the time. I'm insecure all of the time. I'm freaking out about the future, and I'm regretting the past. I should have done this. I should have done that. I'm awake for days at a time, or I'm asleep for days at a time. I can't bring myself to make friends because of how uncomfortable I feel. It feels like I cannot breathe. And to these therapists and these psychiatrists, like without knowledge of how much I'm drinking, it looks like I am bipolar. And it looks like I have manic depression or just regular depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or any of those things. And they diagnosed me with every single one. And they would give me medication, which I enjoyed that too. But the problem with all of that, like I really expected it to work, you know, because I felt like I was different. I thought something was wrong. I didn't know there was a big book that described my illness perfectly. So I believed the diagnoses, but like none of the treatments worked because what I suffer from is a spiritual malady. You know, I don't need more Seroquel. I need God, really. I don't know, and that was high school for me, truancy, summer school, psych wards. I never went to prom, I never walked to graduation. I dropped out because a teacher wanted to hold me back because he was like the one that just wouldn't give me a break, Mr. Winterbottom. I didn't get to pass that class, so I dropped out and I got my GED because I am an intelligent person. Like I always, I don't know, I always caught on to things quickly. You know, if I applied myself, I probably could have. I just didn't want to apply myself to anything that wasn't getting the next drink, truly. And that same summer, when I dropped out, I got my GED. My dad was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and that progressed very rapidly. And he ended up passing away too. And again, like worst and best time of my life, used it to my advantage fully and drank the way I wanted to drink with that behind, like under my belt, you know, which is so, I don't know. I was just talking to my friend about this the other day because she had similar instances happen in her life with her parents, and I wish that I behaved differently, and I try to make living amends every day for my behavior back then. But because both of my parents loved me so much, they loved me and all of my siblings, they left behind enough money to make sure that we could go to any college that we wanted to. And you know, although they loved me, they knew me very well. So they made sure that there was a responsible adult in charge of this money that could account for what I was spending and making sure that I was spending it responsibly and I wasn't killing myself. So, you know, when they initially passed away, this lawyer who's in charge of my parents' money, she doesn't know me. I'm able to manipulate and misrepresent myself, and she gives me a bunch. And I take it, and I get an apartment in Philadelphia, and that's what I thought that I needed. I thought Delco was the root of my alcoholism. I thought I really needed to get out of there. I need to be in the city to find myself. I don't know. And I move into this apartment, and I bring a boyfriend with me. And my younger sister, she was like 18 or 19 years old, and she was really struggling with the loss of our parents. So I was like, why don't you move out of mom and dad's house and come with me? And I taught her how to cure her misery the best way that I knew how, which was to drink the way that I would drink. And we just lived there. I didn't work. I'd never worked for anything in my life. Like I just illustrated to you, everything was handed to me. And we drank. And this lawyer, she saw that we were like destroying ourselves with this money, so she cut it off like pretty quickly, actually. It didn't go very far. And when she did that, I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do. I have no resume. I have no skills, but I need money. I need to support my alcoholism. I wasn't concerned about the roof over my head or the food in the fridge or the Pico bill. Like I was just worried about how am I going to drink. And I saw my older sister do this. And I followed her because it seemed to work for her. And I apologize if this level of honesty like offends anybody or makes anybody uncomfortable. And if that's true, like write inventory on it. You know, you don't have to come talk to me or anything. This feels very formal. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but whatever. It's not a big deal. I started dancing at a nightclub for money. Is because it's what I knew how to do without really having to work for anything, and I could remain drunk. It was like a really sweet deal. And I would go into work and all of these women were around me, and I told myself that I was way better than them because they are doing things for money that I would never do for money. Like I went to private school and I play piano. I would never do those things ever. And I quickly got there too. you know, because that's where alcoholism takes people like us. It takes us from like really good upbringings, and, you know, I don't know if I had any values or morals, but if I did, it was destroyed. Alcohol did that. And, you know, before I knew it, I was doing things for money to get drunk, and then I was getting drunk to forget about the things I was doing for the money to get drunk. And I was making a lot of money, and I was supporting my alcoholism, my sister's alcoholism. I was paying all of the bills, but I was so miserable. I felt dead inside. I couldn't believe that my life had gotten here. And I would just keep drinking to like numb that feeling, you know, and then I would just go to work to make more money, to get more drunk, and then get more drunk to forget about it. And I don't know, I lived that way for like a year or two. And my boyfriend, you know, he found out what I was doing. He had no idea. I think I told him I was like bartending or something, and he realized that that was not the truth, and he didn't like that at all, so he left. And my younger sister, she realized that she was very miserable living the way we were living, and she wanted to change it. So she went off and joined a cult called Narcotics Anonymous, and she was trying to convince me that she is sober and happy, and I was certain that that was not true. Like, you cannot be sober and happy. You can be sober and unhappy, or you're happy and you're not sober, but like, I don't think that what you're saying is really possible. So I don't know, that was like the worst. My sister left and my boyfriend left, and then I was in this apartment all by myself. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been in psych wards. Psych wards were cool. I've been in jail. I have had like really terrible, I've been in really awful places, but the worst place that I could ever be was in my own head with my own thoughts, when it's on me in that way. When alcoholism is on me, my thoughts are racing like 1,000 miles per hour in every possible negative like direction. It's the worst. I can't stand it. I can't stand my skin. I can't stand my life. I can't stand anything. So I needed to find somebody to distract me from me, really, which is so sad too. That's so selfish. Like, I can't just use people in that way, but I did. So I found a guy who, he didn't know me, and he came over one night, and he brought over a pizza and a bottle of whiskey, and he didn't leave. Like, we lived together from that point forward. And 2 weeks after that, we're saying, I love you to each other. This is how I was in every relationship. Like, if you make eye contact with me and I can get away with it, like, I'm keeping you around. And 2 months after we're exchanging I love yous, I was pregnant with his child, and I decided to keep it. Again, very selfishly, like, I wanted to have this baby because if I have this baby, first of all, he cannot leave me, you know, if he finds out the truth. It's like a security thing. And also, maybe it'll help me. Maybe it'll fix me. Maybe this is exactly what I need. Maybe this will be the family that I always wanted and never had. So I decided to keep this baby, and I got it together for a little bit, but before I knew it, I was home all alone. I wasn't working, obviously. I have a big pregnant belly. And my boyfriend, who I didn't really know at all, he had an actual job where he went to every day. And I would just sit at home and like waste away and rot and think and think and think. And that was the worst. And I think like 1 out of 10 doctors will tell you it's okay to drink a glass of wine while you're pregnant. And this one doctor is saying like music to my ears. I love that doctor so much. Thank you for saying that. So I'm gonna take this glass of wine and I'm gonna drink it. And this glass of wine is gonna turn into a daily glass of wine, and this daily glass of wine turned into a daily box of wine. And before I knew it, I was ripping and running as hard as I ever had before. And I remember throughout my whole pregnancy, I was very scared. I felt like this like serious disconnect to my stomach. I don't know, I haven't been pregnant since, so I don't know what it's supposed to be like, but I was just like so afraid because I didn't care. And I was aware that it was wrong, but I didn't care. And you know, the day came that my son was born, and I held him in my arms, and all of that disconnect went away instantly. Like, I held him, and it was the first time I ever considered maybe caring about someone more than myself. And I loved him. I loved him so much. I loved him more than my right arm. And that's how I know that my mom loved me. You know, and my son, 4 days after he was born, he started turning blue, and he started throwing up, and he started going into full-blown withdrawal from the decisions I was making when I was pregnant. And, you know, he got sent to the NICU, CYS got involved, which is Child Protective Services in Pennsylvania. We're in Pennsylvania. I feel like we're in another state over in Pennsylvania. Last night I spoke in Delaware, and I don't know, I think that's where that's coming from. But I don't know, I was able to manipulate and misrepresent myself yet again to whoever I needed to misrepresent myself to in order for them to let me take my child home. And I did, and I continued drinking. You know, that's the long and short of it. I continued drinking because although I love my son more than my right arm, the big book talks about it. It says no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And my son, even though he's absolutely perfect and he's everything and he doesn't deserve it, and I know this, he's just a little human and he's not going to solve my problem for me no matter how much I wish that he could. It's a lot of pressure to put on an infant. And I'll fast forward, you know, when my son was like 9 months old, his father, you know, saw that I was way too dangerous to be around a little baby, so he took our son and he left. Which that was the worst. That was the absolute darkest I had ever felt, because now I'm in this house and again by myself, thinking, regretting, worrying, like we do, you know, you guys get it. But now there's like pictures of what my family once was. Like there's pictures of my son everywhere and I don't understand how I got here again. I really wanted to stop. Like if you, this is such a cliche, but if you put me onto a lie detector test and asked me if I wanted to stop, I would have said yes. Like I'm willing to stop, I want to stop, but I can't stop. And within like 10 days or a couple weeks, I don't know, it was such a blur. I just started drinking more, you know, because I was in so much pain. And that's just how that's how I am. That's how it's described in the big book. It's like I was beating myself over the head with a hammer trying to cure a headache. Even though my drinking was injurious, I go and do it again expecting it to not be. You know, I'm like the jaywalker. I truly am. And, you know, my son's father, he actually cared about me, which is very lucky. We didn't know each other very well at all, and I made him very upset. But he would come to the house every single day, and he would check on me to make sure that I was breathing, because he didn't want to look at our son and not know that he did everything he could to save our son's mother. And one day he came over, and the neighbors were like, Jackie was taken away in an ambulance again. She's in the hospital. He collected a bunch of my stuff, my clothes, he put them in a duffel bag, he brought them to the hospital, and he said, Jackie, I really think that you need to go to rehab. And I think that people probably said that to me in the past, but I wasn't willing to hear it. For some reason, this day, I was willing to hear it, you know, I was willing to consider it, not because I wanted to be sober, I really didn't. But I wanted to be my son's mom again. I wanted my stuff back. I wanted another boyfriend. I wanted a car. I wanted my life to feel okay, you know? And it's so sad. Like if that's all I got out of going to treatment, I would have sold myself way short. If all I got was my son, an apartment, a car, blah, 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 I would have shortchanged myself, really. That's what I always did. So I said, yes, you know, I'll go. I was tired. I was tired of lying. I was tired of making money out of nothing. I was just exhausted. So I went, and when I went into treatment, you know, I was taking all of my antidepressants, my anti-anxiety medications, and the doctor looked at me and he was like, Miss, you are 24 years old. Why are you taking a handful of medication every single day? And I was like, because I have anxiety. And he's like, you've just been smoking amphetamines for like 3 months. Like perhaps that's why you have anxiety, which that never occurred to me. And I was like, okay, you have a point. So he took me off of all of that medication. And yeah, I thought that was the best value in narcotic sales, but that's the last I'll say about it. He took me off of all of that medication, and it was like truly me on me. I started taking my first real sober breaths since I was an adolescent probably. And I felt so broken. I was skinny, I looked bad, I felt bad, and I would just sit on my bed and I would sob. I would cry my eyes out. And usually when I feel that way, when I would like get upset, or like my mind wouldn't slow down, I would turn the TV on to sort of like drown out my thoughts. But I didn't have TV in treatment, so I would go down to the H&I meetings, where you guys would come in and you guys would talk to us, and it was like sort of like a movie, you know. So I would go down there trying to distract myself from me. And one night this guy came in and he wore a really nice suit like that one, and he looked so important. He had this really big white smile. He looked nice. He had like a tan. He looked like he had it all together. And then he sat down in treatment and he told verbatim my story, like every detail. And I don't know, that I needed that tonight. But also, with that being said, if anybody in here can't identify with anything I said, like maybe you haven't been pregnant, or maybe you haven't been to jail, maybe you haven't been to psych wards, I don't know, maybe like that's just not what happened to you, like come talk to me after the meeting and I will find a way to connect with you. That's such a beautiful thing about Alcoholics Anonymous. My sponsor, she has never been arrested a day in her life. She didn't have a child in her active alcoholism, but when I talk to her and I describe to her what I'm going through, my issue is that like I see the world only through my scope of emotions, you know, and she's able to listen to the situation without my emotions attached and like provide a solution. She's very talented in that way, but she also relates her experience, and when she does that, it's like she's walking around in my head pulling down books off a shelf called Thoughts by Me and reading them to me. You know, it's so beautiful, and that's what I found here in Alcoholics Anonymous. So I promise, you know, if anybody doesn't have anything in common with me, I'll find something for us. I really will. Challenge accepted. I don't know, this guy, he shared my whole story, and that meant a lot to me. And after the meeting, nobody wanted to share because we're all sitting in rehab. We all hate ourselves. And he was so confident, he just started like popcorn picking people to share. He was like, you share, and he picked on me. He wanted me to share, and I shared honestly. I shared everything that I was going through. I was like, I just lost my son, who I love. I have warrants out for my arrest. I got dumped again. I burned every single bridge. I have nowhere to live. I don't know what to do. I have no money. And I cried my eyes out. And after the meeting, this guy came up to me and he gave me a really big hug. And during his speech, he talked about how his life got better too, which was through God reliance and the 12 steps. And after the meeting, he came up and he hugged me and he said, you know, everything can and will get better if you come to AA and you do these steps. I believe that for you, you know. And he gave me a big hug, and I've talked to him since, and I explained this to him. I was like, you don't know what you did for me that night. But that night, in that moment, everything had already gotten better. That was like my first real taste of human connection. I told you the truth about myself. I told you the dark truth about myself, which I had never done before, and you hugged me. Like, you accepted me, and you gave me hope. And I didn't know that was going to happen. I didn't know that if I told anybody the truth that you guys would, you know, try to help. You know, I thought everybody would condemn me. I thought you guys would treat me like an untouchable. Like, don't look at her. She's terrible. She drank while she was pregnant. That's how I felt inside. Like, I hated myself, and I assumed everyone else would too. And after that night, I felt so good because I connected with somebody. So every night in treatment, I just started sharing, like, alcoholically. It felt great. And everybody probably hated me. Towards the end of treatment, it came time to figure out what to do afterwards. And again, I burned every bridge. Nobody was going to take me in. Nobody wanted me to stay there. And I tried really hard. So my counselor put me in a recovery house, and you know, I took it because I had no other options, really. Not because my intentions were good or I really wanted to be sober. I was like, I guess I got to go live here now. I didn't know what to expect, but this house, it's better than like other houses. Like, there's some houses like that I've seen now, like you just pay your rent and you live there and you do whatever you want. That was not this. This was like a boot camp of a recovery house. It was like, you have to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and you have to get a sponsor, and you have to start working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And if you don't do that, you won't get off blackout. And if you continue not to do it, you will be homeless, which was enough incentive for me to try. So I I went ahead and I tried to get a sponsor. I asked, like, the first familiar face I saw this woman that I sort of knew when I was a kid. She was my friend's neighbor, and she was so excited to see me. She was like, I knew it. And I was like, you knew me when I was 12. But she did, and I was like, will you be my sponsor? Because I didn't know what I was doing. And she was like, yeah, I will. And throughout, like, my first few months in that recovery house, I was terrible. I really was. I didn't think I was at the time, but I was lying to everybody. I was manipulating anybody. I was shoplifting all of the time, and they didn't like that, my recovery house. They hated that. The girls did not like me at all. I was like leaving dishes everywhere. My bed was unmade. Like, I was really difficult to be around. My sponsor, she would pick me up, and she would drive me around. I'd be like, you know, these girls, they suck. They won't stop like yelling at me. They just keep complaining. They all have an issue with me, and I don't even know what the problem was because I'm not drinking. And they were all like, Jackie, you're the problem. I didn't know that at all. I thought that if you took away the drug and the drink, like, I would be good, but I was not at all. I was truly maladjusted to life. My sponsor, she would listen to me complain, and she'd be like, yeah, you're right. And she would buy me some iced tea and take me back home. And I didn't know that that's not what a sponsor does. I loved it. She just told me I was right and bought me stuff. Like, I loved it so much, but that's not at all what I needed. And not to knock her either, because I guess whatever she's doing is working for her. I see her around sometimes, and she's so happy to see me doing well. But I didn't know that there was a big book. I didn't know that the big book existed. And I don't know, I stopped calling her for some reason. I probably just didn't want to talk to her, and I went to another meeting, and I found a different sponsor, and I don't know how I shared in a meeting, and she like related to what I was saying, and she came up to me and was like, hey, I lost my kids too, but now I have them back. I would love to talk to you anytime. And I was like, actually, that would be great. Will you sponsor me? And she was like, I don't know. I'm on my 9th step, but let me check with my sponsor. She had never sponsored anybody in her whole life, but she checked with her sponsor, and she got the green light, and she was like, yeah, let's start reading. And we started reading. And again, she had no idea what she was doing. So she took me through every single page, every single line in the big book. And we didn't know what we were doing. We would just read it together, and we would try to talk about it. And like, something inside of me just started shifting, where I would walk into CVS and I would not walk out with like a pocket full of makeup because I wanted it. And I would leave with a receipt, and it's not because I was deliberately trying to be a better person. I was just like, I don't know, it sounds unbelievable, but I think that's why somewhere in this it says it works, it really does, exclamation point, because it's so unbelievable. It works, it really does. And it started working, and I started talking to the women in my house, and the truth was like coming out of my mouth, and we started connecting, and I started developing friendships. I got off blackout, like, things were really looking up. And I kept like doing the steps to the best of my ability, which, by the way, wasn't very good, but it was the best that I could, and I believe that too. I think that if you give it 1%, God's gonna take like care of the rest of the 99%, and that's what He did for me. And naturally, things kept getting better. It came time for me to get a job, one of the girls in my house was like, my mom runs a daycare down the street. Maybe you could go apply there and work there. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't think so. I think that if they run a background check, they're not going to hire me. I also have no experience. I have literally nothing on my resume besides like nightclub. I don't think that I should work with little kids. And she was like, just go try. And I went and gave it a shot, and they hired me, and I started working there, and I became the lead teacher in the 2-year-old room, and I ended up loving it. I loved it, and I was so grateful for the opportunity, because again, I didn't think it was possible at all for somebody like me. And but when I was living in that recovery house, like my biggest qualm was that I could not see my son at all. I couldn't see him. I could see him for like 20 minutes a week supervised, maybe if I was being cool and if his dad was in a good mood. But I started working at this daycare, and shortly thereafter my son got like put in that daycare at a discounted rate because I had an employee discount, and I got to start seeing my son every single day for a little bit and get paid for it. It was amazing. And I just like to point out that story because that wasn't my will for myself. I didn't wake up one morning and think I would be really good at molding the minds of children. Absolutely not at all. I believe that's what God's will for me was. I think that if you do the work in this book and you try to keep close to God and you perform his work well, he's going to provide exactly what you need when you need it. And that's what I needed. I just needed to see my son a little bit, and it kept my feet moving and it kept me in that house. And like things just kept working out like that, and my son's father and I, we weren't getting along. Like I just said, we weren't. I kept saying, like, I deserve more time with my son. That's my son. I carried him for 9 months. I was very entitled about it, because I'm a mother. We just would argue all the time. And at about a year sober, he decided to take me to court for full custody. He wanted all of legal and all of physical, and I was so scared. I was sobbing. I was crying my eyes out all the time about this because he's a union worker. He makes a lot of money. He could afford an attorney, and this attorney had a lot of evidence as to why I should not be my son's mother. I was so scared. It was all the truth, too. And all I had was $10 an hour at a daycare and my sponsor. So I invited my sponsor. I was like, will you come to this with me? And she did. And I remember I went into that courtroom. My legs were shaking. I was tearful. I was so upset that it was happening. But the master, he looked at my son's father. He looked at his attorney. He looked at me, and then he noticed my sponsor. And he recognized my sponsor because he had worked with her for the past 5 years to reunify her with her children. And he saw Alcoholics Anonymous work for her in her life, and he believed that it could work for me in my life. So that day, he granted me shared legal custody and as much physical custody as he could, considering I was in a recovery house. And I'm not saying that if you do the 12 steps, like you're gonna just get whatever you want and things are gonna work out, because that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to be sued that day. I didn't want to go into court at all. I didn't want to I got Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays with my son. But what the 12 steps taught me? It taught me how to walk through that stuff. It taught me how to rely on God and ask God for help when I have to go through that stuff. And I went in there and I held it together. I did not curse my son's father out. And the master looked, favorably upon that. He saw that I had a year sober, and the truth just sort of spoke for itself. And I then became the best Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday mom that anybody could have. And I tried not to focus on the fact that I'm not getting what I want. Like, I want it every day. I just try to be grateful for what I have, and that's really helped me. That still helps me. And again, I just love that story because God is not something I believe in because I read about it in some book. And God's not something I believe in because I go to church. God's not something I believe in because you guys won't stop talking about him. God is something that I believe in because I've experienced God. I can see where God's been there, and I can see where God's been working in my life. I really appreciate God. And I don't say it in like a churchy way. Not that I knock anybody that does say it in a churchy way. That's just not what I do. And I don't know. I just wanted to say that in case somebody's separating themselves, because I did that. And I don't know, things kept getting better. I'm going to try to wrap this up as quickly as possible. It's so hard. It gets so difficult because, I don't know, there's so much to talk about when you get sober. I ended up not working at that daycare anymore. I got a different job at a hospital. Again, fell in my lap, God's will for me. It's not something I sought out. It was for this program that helps pregnant women who struggle with substance use disorder. And they hired me, and I got to work alongside all of these doctors and these therapists and these counselors and these brilliant case managers in this massive healthcare system only because I have experience being a pregnant woman with substance use disorder. And my job was to just support them and try to encourage them to go to Alcoholics Anonymous if they wanted to come, or recover, however they wanted to do that. I just wanted to encourage them to be themselves. And I didn't believe you guys. When you guys told me, you know, my most sordid path would become my greatest asset, I didn't know that that really dark period of my life could be used to help somebody else. But you guys taught me how to use those dark things about myself and help other people. And I was only good at that job because I came here for free. Like that was my means of income. It was also a means of service. I believe that for work too. But like, I'm only good in my other affairs if I come here. You know, and like things kept getting better. I started making amends. My brother and my sister talk to me. They call me all the time now. It's really beautiful. I have relationships that I never dreamed would be possible. I have a fiance who I appreciate and adore. And my son's father and I stopped demanding things from him. I stopped telling him, like, I need more time with my son. I need Christmas. I need his birthday. I need all of this. I need. I started asking him, how can I help you? Do you need any money? You know, can I pick Connor up? Like, what can I do to make this easier for you? And through that, I just kept doing that all of the time. We started developing like a working relationship where he just started giving me more time. I didn't have to fight for it, you know? He would just ask me for help, and I got to be there for my son and for him. And I would drop my son off to him and we would just say hello. You know, we wouldn't fight or argue or go at each other's throat. We'd just say, how are you? And then I'd get in my car and I'd leave. And like, Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to do that, and I applied it in all of my affairs. And it works. It really does. I don't know if you guys know this, but it really works. And just this past summer, my son's father willingly signed over shared physical custody to me. Not legally, but like he said, you know, you can have Connor half of the time and we'll start negotiating holidays. And that's the 9-step promises. It says we have ceased fighting everything and everyone. And like, I don't know, I have a different sponsor today. She helps me so much. Like I said, she is able to see life without my emotions attached to it, relate her experience, and provide me a solution. And that solution is always to point back to the big book and pray to God, and help other people. And it serves me well. You know, if there's one thing I absolutely don't do, it's lie to my sponsor. I think that's a very fundamental principle in this program. It's like the first one, it's honesty. Every other principle is supposed to build off that honesty. So I share my brokenness with her all of the time. I share with her, even though it's shameful for me that, you know, I have 5 years sober and there's this one amends I'm so afraid to make. And she, you know, she doesn't tell me what to do. She just tells me what she has done. That's it. You know, I don't respond well to people yelling at me and telling me what to do. If that worked, I would have been sober a long time ago. She just tells me what's worked for her. And I love how she operates in her life with her family. You can tell, like, she is genuinely happy. She's reasonably happy most of the time, and I want that so bad. So I do what she's done. And, you know, this week I made a really scary amends, and it's not like a beautiful big amends story, and I won't make you guys torture through it, but, you know, I was able to walk through that fear, and I'm able to still grow today. You know, this program, it's a program of limitless expansion. So as long as I keep wanting to get better, I can always get better. I can always grow. And it is an honor to be here, even though I would rather watch Netflix on my couch. But I have been taught to show up when I am asked and put on a dress if I am asked. And if anybody's not sure if they want to do the 12 steps, I recommend you give it a shot. You know, I know that everybody in this room deserves it. I know everybody deserves it, and don't sell yourself short. You know, you've been doing it your whole life. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Let's thank Jackie one more time. Powerful story. A couple quick announcements. Our speakers come here at their own time and expense. It's customary for us to form a line and thank them formally. It means a lot to them. We have a couple things to announce. We have a Christmas Eve, falls every 7 years. Christmas Eve falls on a Saturday night and New Year's Eve. So we'll have a party here for empty nesters. Christmas Eve, look for the flyer for that, and the information will be on our Facebook page. And New Year's Eve, we have a pretty cool party going on. We'll have open mic 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Put like 12 speakers there. It's open to any of you guys. Everybody gets like 5 minutes, and we'll have some fun with that. And I'm going to run it up until we get kicked out the door. And the next year is probably 12, 1, 2, 3. Who knows what that's going to look like. I think the girls are working really hard to put together bands and music and all kind of stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun. This group has a commitment in Quakertown Treatment Center if you'd like to get involved. It's every Sunday night, but now it's been extended to Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Sunday. So if you'd like to get involved and carry the message to the still sick and suffering, it's very powerful. I love doing it myself. See me after the meeting and we'll do that. With that, we'll close with the Lord's Prayer if you care to join us. And don't forget the meeting after the meeting. Oh, a quick thank you to Ed. I don't know if he's here. He might have left. He filled in for Howard, the best coffee baker on the East Coast. Go! I forgot that. Let's take a moment of silence. Do with it what you like, and if you care to join us, we'll end with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation,